Hi, and welcome back to my channel. Now, last week I made two book review videos. I'm going to raise it a little bit. Last week I made two book review videos for my Monday reads, and it's because I was binge reading the James Patterson series, the Michael Bennett series. And so as I was making that other video, it ran almost 10 minutes. So now this is part 2 of my Monday reads being done on Tuesday. Still with me? Good. Okay, so we're talking in this video about all the rest of the books that I read since last week, and we're going to pick up with The Librarian Spy by Madeline Martin. Now, this is a she's a New York Times author. I'm sorry, that was weird. This is a story where we have two women, and if you look at the cover, you'll see Ava and you'll see Elaine. And they are working toward the same ends during World War II, and they both have a huge role that they're playing. And at some point, they do cross paths. With Ava, she was a librarian at the Library of Congress, but she gets recruited by the U.S. military, so she heads over to Lisbon, Portugal, working on her assignment, working for the resistance. For Elaine, she's working with a bunch of men in an apprenticeship job, working on a printing press, printing things where they can hide codes in the pages of books and periodicals in order to thwart the Nazis in their efforts. So that's what keeps both of these women deeply involved in their role in World War II. Now, with Elaine, she finds herself working with trying to save the life of a young Jewish woman and her young son. And so while she's working towards that effort, Ava's still working on her job. And it's what brings these two women to the point where they do cross paths, as I mentioned earlier. Now, this is my second reading of something by Madeline Martin. And what I read from her before was Last Bookshop in London. So I knew going in that this book would be compelling. It would draw me in, and it would capture my attention, and it did all of those things. So that was Madeline Martin's The Librarian Spy. So I'm looking down because I'm bringing up my next book, which is The Codebreaker Secret, and this one was by Sara Ackerman. Now, this book was excellent, okay? Now, if you like historical fiction, if you like World War II-based historical fiction, and if you like strong, brilliant female characters, then you can't go wrong with The Codebreaker Secret. Now, in The Codebreaker Secret, we have a dual timeline story. Unlike the previous book I just talked about, The Librarian Spy, which focused on one time frame, this one focuses on two. It's 1943 on the Pacific in Pearl Harbor, and it's also 1965 with the opening of a beautiful, glamorous hotel in Mauna Kea Beach, and it's in Hawaii. I think it's Okano, I can't say the name, but Oahu maybe, I'm not sure. All I know is in 1965, we have a journalist named Lou Freitas who is covering the grand reopening of this hotel, and something brings back a historical event, and it's partially because she's paired with a photographer, a veteran photographer, who knew someone back in 1943. So when she's unraveling this mystery with this photographer, we go back to what happened in World War II in 1943. Well, who are we focusing on in 1943? Well, we're focusing, it looks like I didn't write the review yet. I want to tell you her name. Isabel. I'm sorry, I just had to look at, I did write this review. I don't know where it is. But anyway, Isabel. Okay, she has a job and she is deciphering Japanese codes. She's breaking these codes. She joined the resistance because she lost her brother in that dreadful day, December 7, 1941, the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Now, she's working on these codes, but she also wants to talk to other soldiers that worked alongside with her brother and to honor his death. So she meets his best friend, and we learn that he had secrets. secrets that even surrounded the death of her brother during that bombing of Pearl Harbor. So we have to see what brings Isabel and our journalist from 1965, 20 plus years later, what brings the story full circle. And that was the fabulously written The Codebreaker Secret by Sara Ackerman. Just unbelievable. She is fabulous. Now, the next book. No, I haven't written this review yet. I am in bed for a few more days, so I will be writing it today. This book is called Stay Awake by Megan Goldin. Now, this is funny, and I'm going to share it with you on this channel. Now, I said I was going to do this in bed. I was going to write the review in bed. Why am I in bed? Well, last week I had surgery. I had surgery on Thursday. And for that surgical, well, I won't say procedure because it was out and out surgery. For that surgery, I had 3 strong medications. I think it was Versed, fentanyl, and propofol. So I come home and I want to read. Well, the very next book in my TBR was called Stay Awake. Well, with all those drugs still circulating through my system, I could not stay awake while reading this book. But the thing is, look at that title. Well, you could tell it's going to be a thriller just based on the cover, based on the title. And yet I was still so inundated with the medication that they gave me to perform the surgery that I could not stay awake while reading this book. So I put it aside and I waited till the next day. So here we have a woman who was what? Trying to stay awake. She wakes up in the back of a taxi and she doesn't have any idea where she is, why she's in the taxi, who she is, and what's going on around her. But she has some strange messages. She looks at the knuckles of her hands and it says, stay awake. Wouldn't it have been funny if I had written that on my hands, but I'm not going to do that. She had other messages written on her skin. Why would she have the words stay awake written on her knuckles and other messages written so that she could see them? Kind of in a graffiti, but So she wants to use her cell phone to call for help. Who? She doesn't know. She doesn't find a cell phone, but what she does find is a knife, a blood-stained knife. Okay, so let's see. She has a job. She has a best friend. She's a good writer. Okay, so she tries to go back to all of these places. Her job, her apartment, back to where her best friend is. But guess what? She doesn't live where she thinks she lives. She doesn't work where she thinks she works. And then she sees the news. And when she sees the news, now she has to wonder, well, that knife, it's been used to commit a crime. And the victim's blood, there was a gruesome message written in the victim's blood. Did she kill somebody and not remember it? What is this amnesia? I was going to say anesthesia. What is this amnesia that Liv has? And why does the book go back 2 years and then come back to present? Go back 2 years and come back to present. Excellent, excellent, excellent book by Megan Goldin. Like I said, I'm eager to get this review written today because the book is, it's not going to be released for a week, so I guess I got some time. I'm losing my mind here. Okay, so that was Stay Awake. I loved it, and that's all I could say on that one. I already had a bad headache before I started, and I'm making it worse by getting excited. So then I read James Patterson by who? James Patterson. Yes, his memoir. I had this book for 2 months, but me and my busy schedule, I can't always get to everything. It takes a minute. Well, in this book, James Patterson did his memoirs in form of stories. He told stories and he narrated his own book. And I have to say something. I think I have read, no lie, 80 of his books. And he does not sound like I pictured him to sound. And that's really weird because he cameoed on Castle. And I can't think of the actor's name in Castle, who played Richard Castle. But I know his name. I'm thinking it's Nathan. But anyway, I saw Patterson on Castle, so I knew what he looked like. I've seen his picture on the back of some of the books that I read, although most of the books I read are digital. But he didn't sound quite like I expected, but he still sounded great, and they couldn't have picked anybody better to narrate his memoirs. So that was James Patterson by James Patterson. I loved it, and I hope you read it. Now, the next book I read, and I do think I've done the book review on this one, is The Sweetest Thing by Sasha Summers. And this was a really good book because The Sweetest Thing I thought would be based on the love story in this romance. But The Sweetest Thing really had to do with a stolen family recipe. And nope, it doesn't look like I wrote this book review. I want to see when it comes out. Oh, it came out June 28th, so I've got to get this one done. Now, here's why I read this book and why I want to go ahead and get the review written. First of all, I requested it on NetGalley. Secondly, it's already been released. Thirdly, it's the first book in a new series. Fourth is when I'm looking over my NetGalley queue, I always, if a book has already been released that I haven't had time to get to, I go back and check my libraries via Libby or Overdrive or Hoopla. And if I can find that book as an audiobook, then I try to squeeze it in so that I can work on my backlog. And that's what I did with Sasha Summers' book, The Sweetest Thing. And as mentioned, it's the first book in a new series. And, you know, when I find that out, 9 times out of 10, if the book is in a genre that I like or an author that I'm familiar with, I'm going to read it because I always want to get in the ground floor of new series. Our players in this book are Tansy Hill and Dane Knudsen. Now, they have been rivals since childhood and they're rivals today. What is that sweetest thing? What is that stolen recipe? It's honey. So there's going to be bees in this series, beehives, and then the competition that's between our two principal characters, all while this honey recipe is being trying to be recovered because it had been stolen. Then you have the fact that it's a love story. So it's sweet on 2 levels. Really good book. I loved it. Then I read another thriller, and that thriller was Reckless Girls. And do I have a review for this ready? Heck no. But I will. So, Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins. Now, I'm trying to read as many Rachel Hawkins books as I can, and this was one of them that I read, and this book has been out for a minute, since January, but, you know, it is what it is. So, she wrote, like, The Wife Upstairs, and what else did she write that I've read by her? I'll just tell you, I read The Wife Upstairs, but I feel like there's more, but we won't look. The Villa. I don't think I've read The Villa yet, but I will be reading it in a few weeks. So that is Rachel Hawkins. So what is this book about? Well, this book is about 2 characters, Lux McAllister and her boyfriend Nico, and they're hired to sail 2 women to the South Pacific, a remote island on the South Pacific. Why am I having trouble saying that word? Well, it's nothing. It's not a day in the park. Okay, in fact, it becomes a dangerous situation for everybody that's involved. The environment might be beautiful, you know, it's off the South Pacific, near Hawaii, but then there's danger. And these women, these best friends, they're Brittany and Emma. And now our hosts, Lux and Nico, start to realize that these women had an ulterior motive. And with this ulterior motive, in going off to this long forgotten island on the coast, then it's kind of reminds you of a locked room situation, because you have a limited amount of people and you have danger, and then you have people you can't trust. And so that's about it. I've got to write the review. I don't know what my full thoughts are going to be on that one, but that is Reckless Growth. So the next book I'm going to tell you about is number 28 in the Eve Duncan series, and it's called A Face to Die For. Now, I haven't written this review, and I'm not sure if I will include this on my channel because this is an Audible book purchase, because I didn't know that it was going to be available for review, and I wanted to get it, so I pre-ordered it and got it on the day it came out, which was June 14th. Now, I already have book number 29, which is Captive, and that's only coming out in only a few months, so I'll be reading that book soon. In this book, the A Face to Die For, like I said, the Eve Duncan number 28, I have read all of the previous books, and I have loved each and every one of them. In this book, Eve, who is a forensic sculptor, is working in South Africa, separated from her husband Joe and their son Michael for a good reason, one that you'll have to read the book to find out. But she's working hard identifying the faces of children that had been killed in a really drastic event. But she is approached by somebody named Riley Smith. Riley Smith is obsessed with Helen of Troy, and she thinks she has found the skull of this historical character. And when she approaches Eve for Eve to recreate this skull, Eve says, that is myth, or, that, and Riley is like, no, it's not. And you are the one person that can prove that Helen of Troy was real. The thing is, somebody doesn't want this recreation to be fulfilled, and somebody wants to steal the recreation should Eve fulfill it. So this puts danger, and that's what Eve faces. So we do get to see Joe. I won't spoil it for you, but we do get to see Joe. And I'm going to tell you something. I love certain relationships in certain series, Eve and Joe, or in the Eve Dallas series, Eve and Rourke, or in Catherine Coulter's FBI series, Sherlock and Dylan. I mean, some characters as married couples in these long-standing series are gorgeous. I mean, that's not the right word, but a great. I love them, and that's what the case is with this book. So, really good book, really good addition to the series. No, I'm not going to wait 3 months to read Captive, book number 29, because it's going to call at me. It's going to call on me, read me, and that's what I want to do. Then I read The Last Thing to Burn by Will Dean, and let me tell you something. First of all, it's the first book I read by Will Dean. And it is the shortest book that I read in this time frame, actually only 241 pages. And I'm glad for that. And the reason why is this was one of the most tension-filled books I have read this year. This is the kind of book that I would literally have to be sitting on the edge of my seat, because you want to get up and run. It was so scary. It was so tense. Now, we have here a woman who's trapped by a monster. He has kidnapped her. 7 years she has been his captive. And now she discovers she's pregnant, and she is determined beyond any determination she had prior till now, is she's going to get away. She's going to keep this child safe. Well, she discovers that she's not alone in her captivity. And the angst that I felt when I read this book, I cannot match it with anything that I've read. So that is The Last Thing to Burn. I have another book by Will Dean in my queue, and that's called Firstborn. So I can't wait to read it. I hope it won't be as tense, because this one was so tense. Then I read a long book. I read this short book, and now I read a book that was 3 times the length of that one. It's Quarter to Midnight, and it's by Karen Rose, and it's the first book in her New Orleans series. Now, I have read maybe 4 or 5 books by Karen Rose, so if I see her name in the Neck Alley page or site, then I request it. And in this case, not only was I able to do that, but I was asked to do a blog tour for it, which is tomorrow. So this book review is probably 95% written. But once I write a really detailed review, I leave it for a while and then I go back to it. And that's what I'll do with this one. So Karen Rose is a prolific and a excellent writer, New York Times and USA Today bestselling author. She's brilliant. This book was brilliant. This book was compelling. And here's the story. We have our man, his name is Gabe Hebert, if I can say it right, Hebert, but you pronounce it in the French way. Gabe Hebert, his father is dead. Police ruled it as suicide, but he knows it wasn't suicide. He knows it was more. And he wants to find out who killed his father. Now, his father, of course, wanted him to follow in his footsteps, but Gabe said, no, Dad, this job takes far too much out of you. I'm going in a different direction. And he did. He became a chef, an up-and-coming chef, making a name for himself. That's what Gabe is. Now, when he wants to find his father's killer, he hires somebody. And he hires somebody named Burke, and Burke assigns the PI to look into his father's case, and her name is Molly Sutton. Molly Sutton is a former Marine, and now she and Burke are working alongside Gabe to find the murderer of his father. That's the premise. But let me tell you, this book was tough. Karen Rose writes a lot like Karen Slaughter. There's brutality, murder, intensity, and that's what this book was. But it was also, and it is, a romantic suspense novel. In fact, it's her I thought I had it. I think it's her 26th romantic suspense novel. So there's a relationship that forms between Molly and Gabe. But check this out. The book takes place over 7 days. 1 week. All that action, all these characters, all the sparks that flew between Gabe and Molly in a week's time. Really intense. So even though the book was long, I'm thinking, how could all this happen in a week? Well, when you have a brilliant writer, it can all happen within a week. So that was 1:45. I have to get that review written. It is written. I just want to proofread it a couple of times and change up a few lines, no doubt. So we also have Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier. Now, I've got another one of her books in my queue, so I'm glad I got this one read. And let me tell you, it was a fabulous thriller. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this book came out a week ago, 2 weeks ago, actually. In this book, we have Paris. Her name is Paris Peralta, and she's arrested. She's covered in blood, and she's holding a razor. Her husband is in the bathtub, dead. So she's arrested for his murder. That's present time. Then we have 25 years earlier, you have Ruby Reyes, who was known as the Ice Queen, and she was imprisoned for a murder with a similar MO, and so she has spent the last 25 years in prison. Now, what connects Paris Peralta and Ruby Reyes? What's the connection between the two? What is this book trying to do for us to bring us these characters whose stories are similar but separated by over 2 decades? Here's the catch. Is Paris who she says she is? And why is she really nervous about a murder charge that she knows she knows she didn't kill her husband? At least she's a little foggy, something's causing her to be a little cloudy because of how she woke up when her husband was found dead. So, again, Paris isn't who she thinks she is, but Ruby, remember, 25 years in prison, guess what? She knows what's up with Paris. The question is if there's a 25-year difference, how does Ruby know who Paris is? And if that's a valid question, then who is Paris? Now, this book will capture your attention. It was brilliant. It was tense. It was evenly paced. And there were good twists in this book. And then the fact that I was able to listen to this as an audiobook just made it even that much better. It made the tension, and that's what I like when I read psychological thrillers, because you want to know if you have a character you should root for. Do you have what is it called? An unreliable narrator? Or do you have a catch-22? Or do you have red herrings? All those questions come up when you read a book like this. So that's Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier. No, the review's not written yet, but it will be eventually. Then I read book number 2 in the Well Met series, which was Well Played. And right now I'm reading Well Matched, book 3. And I also have book 4, which is Well Traveled. And I think it comes out October or November, but I already have Well Traveled. So all these books are about the Renaissance Fair that takes place every summer. So in this one, we have Stacy and what's the guy's name? Stacy and Dex. Now, Dex is an organizer, not necessarily a performer, and he's organizing the current fair in the town where Stacy lives. Now, Stacy has some baggage, but she does love working every summer on fair. Okay, they call it fair. They don't call it the fair. They don't call it Renaissance. They call it fair. So she's working at these fairs every summer serving drinks. The thing is, Stacy had big dreams, but her mother became ill and she gave up her dreams in order to take care of her mother. But deep inside, she wants more. Well, is more going to be in the form of Dex McLean, this gorgeous hunk of a man who is organizing the band that that's performing in the fair, and the band that Dex is organizing are his cousins, so he's like the manager. Well, there's I'll say something messy about relationships. I'm not going to say who, but there's something messy about the relationships involved between the fair, our characters, and even our side characters, the performers in that band. So it's in Willow Creek, and now Stacy is drawn to Dex. But what's going to happen when fair is over and he leaves? That's your conflict. Part of your conflict is that messy stuff that I'm not going to tell you about, but the other part of your conflict is the fact that fair is going to be in another town, and in another town, and in another town. So that's it. That is Well Played. And that makes for the end of this Monday Reads video. And I am going to go back to my bed, continue to recover. I'll be editing these and getting them uploaded as soon as I can. All right. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.